Hello, my dear friends. Hello, my dear listeners. I hope you are doing your best in your situation to serve your duties with utmost love and honesty. So, my dear friends, today here we are to proceed with a new chapter from the life of Sri Ramakrishna Paramhansa Dev. So, let's begin it. Before commencing this new chapter of his life, it is necessary to take a survey of his mind at this time to see how far it answered to the requirements. The scriptures lay down four great qualifications for aspirants in this line. First of all is the discrimination between the real and the unreal, a firm conviction that Brahman alone is real and all else is unreal. Next is renunciation of the fruits of one's act hereafter. Then comes the following group of attributes: control of the mind and senses, withdrawal from outside objects, forbearance, faith in the teacher and scriptures, and concentration. Lastly comes the yearning for freedom. Only he who is grounded in all these virtues is recommended to approach a teacher who knows the spirit of the Vedas, who is sinless and free from desire, who is compassionate and above all a knower of Brahman and therefore qualified to set him on the path of higher realization. Without going into unnecessary detail, we presume that the reader has seen that Sri Ramakrishna, with his whole mind resting on God and totally regardless of the body, was the very embodiment of discrimination. His renunciation was on a par with his discrimination, for the Alpha and Omega of his life was God. His one prayer to the Divine Mother, uttered with the utmost sincerity of heart, was to be freed from everything that the world holds dear in order to attain pure devotion. The following incident, narrated by Swami Premananda, a disciple of the Master, though happening much later, will illustrate Sri Ramakrishna's habitual spirit of renunciation. One night, as he was sleeping in the same room with the master at Dakshineshwar, he was awakened to find the master pacing the floor in a strangely excited state with his cloth hanging under one arm. At every turn, he spat on the floor, remarking in a tone of utter disgust, "Fie, I spit on it. I don't want it. Take it back, mother. Don't tempt me with this trifle." All the time, he was unconscious of the outside world, and his countenance glowed with emotion. The young disciple was at a loss to know what the trouble was. After some time, Sri Ramakrishna regained the normal state and to the disciple's inquiry replied, "At dead of night, I suddenly awoke from sleep to find the Divine Mother approaching me with a basket in her hand. She held it out to me and asked me to accept the contents which were mine. At a glance, I found that the Mother had brought me worldly honors. They looked so hideous to me that I turned my face in disgust and prayed to her to take back her allurements. Thereupon she disappeared with a smile." We have also ample proof of Sri Ramakrishna's self control and concentration, his faith as well as his yearning for the Lord. In fact, all this were as the very breath of his nostrils, requiring no effort whatsoever. Not only did he manifest all these rare traits of character, but their intensity was most striking. The field was thus ready, ploughed, and waited only for the sowing of the seed. At this moment, Sri Ramakrishna met the spiritual guide who initiated him into the profundities of the Advaita Vedanta. There came the garden of Dakshineshwar, a wonderful man, wonderful both for his great Advaita realization and for the practical demonstration of it in his life. Totapuri, for that was the name of the Augustus newcomer, was one of those itinerant monks who, realizing Brahman as the only and looking upon the world as a phantom, spent their life under the canopy of heaven, alike in storm and sunshine, maintaining themselves on the slender pittances got from begging. It is said that Totapuri practiced in a secluded forest on the banks of the sacred Narbutta and attained to the Nirvikalpa Samadhi after rigid discipline extending over 40 years, a liberated soul indifferent to the joys and sorrows of the world. He intended to spend the remaining years of his life in making pilgrimages to the holy places. Like a lion, he roamed over the country. He had been to Puri and Gangasagar, and on the return journey along the course of the Ganges halted at Dakshineshwar. He did not see that the inscrutable divine will for the fulfillment of a great mission guided his footsteps to this new place. Totapuri stopped at the main portico in front of the Kali temple, where Sri Ramakrishna, dressed in an ordinary dhoti, was seated in an abstracted mood, but his bright face at once arrested the attention of Totapuri, who detected great powers in this plain looking young man. The longer he looked at Sri Ramakrishna, the more he was impressed and at last said, "You seem to be an advanced seeker after truth. Would you like to learn Vedanta?" "I don't know. It all depends on my mother. I can agree to your proposal only if she approves of it," was the quiet answer. "All right," said the monk. "Go and ask your mother. I shall not be here long." Sri Ramakrishna silently left and went to the Kali temple. He spoke of the matter to the mother and, in a state of trance, heard her command, "Yes, my boy, go and learn of him. It is for this purpose that he has come here." In a state of semi consciousness and with a beaming countenance, Sri Ramakrishna returned and said to Totapuri that he had his mother's permission. Totapuri thought, though struck by the simplicity of the young man, must have smiled at his apparent superstition in addressing the image in the temple as mother. A great Vedantin, he believed in the personal God only as the dispenser of fruits of action. Such a God was a mere logical postulate to him, and he did not believe in the efficacy of prayer or devotion to him on the part of an aspirant for self realization. Maya or Shakti, the kinetic state of Brahman, which Sri Ramakrishna looked upon as mother, was to this Vedantist monk nothing but an illusion. So there was absolutely no need for him to propitiate her to extricate himself from ignorance. He knew that man was bound by his own ignorance, and that man alone was able to shatter it to pieces through self effort. But he said nothing to Sri Ramakrishna on the point, thinking that under his training the disciple would soon learn the truth and spontaneously brush aside all superstitions. Totapuri told Sri Ramakrishna that he must be initiated with proper ceremonies into the sacred order of sannyasa before commencing to study the truths of Vedanta or practicing the discipline prescribed in this course. He must give up the insignia of his present state of life, such as the sacred thread or the hair tuft, which marked him as a Brahmin, and household and begin a new life. Sri Ramakrishna said that he had no objection provided he could do so in private. He made this reservation for the sake of his old mother, who had left Kamarpukur about a year before to spend the remaining years of her afflicted life in the sacred precincts of the Dakshineshwar temple, where Mathur's hospitality provided her with a room in full view of the Ganges and all necessary comforts. It would be too much for her to see her son shave his head and take the monk's vow. Totapuri understood his difficulty and said, "All right, I shall initiate you privately at the proper time." So, my dear friends, today we are stopping here and we will come to know what happened next. So, till then, be happy, be jolly, and keep praying. Shubhamastu.